Excellent. And without further ado, I'll now hand it over to Huda to welcome everyone.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the AGJC's weekly Pre-Shabat Zoom. Very often, we talk about the Abraham Accords in the context of diplomatic breakthroughs, economic opportunities, and sharing of cultures. But it's also important to remember the impact it has on both of our people. Our leaders made this bold move not just for our generation, but for our children and grandchildren. As a region, we are doing this for them, because by inculcating the lessons of peace and tolerance within, I don't know who's calling, somebody from Israel. Our leaders made this brief move, not just for our generation, but for our children and grandchildren. As a region, we are doing this for them, because by inculcating the lessons of peace and tolerance within them now, they will grow up to be the future political and business leaders of the next generation, and they will not know of the chasm that previous generations faced. Naturally, higher education plays a critical role in this, and I look forward to one day soon when Bahraini students are on Israeli university campuses and Israeli students are on Bahraini university campuses. Today, we have the privilege to hear from Her Excellency, Sheikha Dr. Rana bint Isa Al Khalifa, Secretary General of Bahrain's Higher Education Council. We're honored to have Ambassador Eitan Naye, Israel's first ambassador to Bahrain, introduce Sheikha Rana today. As always, the AGJC continues to build and enhance Jewish life in the region. If we can be of a resource to you, please follow us on Twitter at Gulf Jewish and visit our website, www.gulfjewish.org. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you will join us again next week. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom from Bahrain.
Thank you very much, Huda. And to kick us off with candlelighting, we'll turn it over to Sue Rubin.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu shadliknei shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much. And now we'll turn it over to Raphael to lead us in Yedid Nefesh.
Raphael from Kuwait. Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman, Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman, Meshoch Avadecha, El Ratzonecha, Meshoch Avadecha, la 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 yeah. Ratzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayal Yishtachave Elai la 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 El Mul Hadarecha. Yerav lo yedidutecha minofet ay 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 suf v'chaltama עדות נעזיב העולם נפשי חולת אהבתך אנא אל נא רפא נא לבחרות לנועם זיווך אז התחזק והתרפא והייתה לשמחת עולם ותקיימו נא רחמך לחוסה נא על בין חודבך כי זה כמה נחשף לבוד לתפארת וזך Ana Eli Hemdat, Livi Husana Al Tik Alam, Higae Na Ufrosh Haviv Alai, El Sukkot Slomach, Tair Eres Mikvotecha Nagila, Nismecha Vach, Mache Ahuv Kiva Moed, Chanenu Kimei Olam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raphael. And now we'll turn it over to Rabbi Elchanan Miller, who's going to lead us in Lecha Dodi.
Thank you. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone from Jerusalem. Happy to be here again. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmianu El hameyuchad Adonai echad ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maase b'machshavat tchila lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה קומיצי מתוך ההפכה רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela התנערי מעפר קומי לבשי בגדי תפארתך מעל יד בן ישי בית הלך מקור ואל נפשי גאלה lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לא תבושי ולא תקלמי מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי בך יחסו עניי עמי ונבנתה עיר על תילה lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה והיו למשיסה שוסייך ורחקו כל מבלעייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמשוש חתן על כלה lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And now it's really an honor and a privilege to introduce the introducer for our speaker. But Ambassador Eitaneh is with us today. Many of us know him from his time here in the UAE, and now he's in Bahrain as Israel's first ambassador ever to Bahrain. And so without further ado, Ambassador Naya.
Thank you very much, Ariela, and hi everybody, Shabbat Shalom. Your Excellency, Sheikh Harana. Few things that one ought to know about Her Excellency Sheikh Harana. Dr. Sheikh Harana bint Issa Bidoej Al Khalifa is the Secretary General of the Higher Education Council, Deputy of the Board of Trustees of the Higher Education Council, and a member of the Supreme Council for Women in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Between the years 2007 and 2021, Her Excellency held various leadership positions in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, including being the first Bahraini woman positioned as Under Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, something Israel still is short of doing. Her Excellency was honored with the Medal of Competence, First Class, from His Majesty, the King of the Kingdom of Bahrain, King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. In addition, Her Excellency also earned Prince Salman bin Hamad Medal for the medical merit from His Majesty, King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, King of the country. And in addition to that, Her Excellency also earned the Arab Woman Award for the year 2022 in social leadership from the Arab London Organization, as well as in 2021. She also earned the Arab Woman Award for social responsibility in the era of transformation, development, inclusiveness, and digital diplomacy by the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. Her Excellency has participated in many events within the framework of the United Nations and other international organizations and agencies. Her Excellency, Dr. Sheikh Harana, earned her PhD in international law from the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom. It's a great honor and privilege to know Sheikh Harana and to introduce her to you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, good afternoon and greetings from Bahrain. First of all, I would like to thank His Excellency Ambassador Itaneh for his kind introduction. And I would also like to thank Her Excellency Ambassador Huda Nunu for kindly inviting me to take part in today's session of your esteemed organization's weekly pre-Shabbat Zoom call as a guest speaker. I also would like to express my sincere gratitude to the President and members of the Board of Trustees of the AGJC for providing me with this platform today. I would also like to take this opportunity and thank the rest of the team at the AGJC for scheduling the appointment and handling all the technical matters related to hosting this call. They truly are among the COVID era's unsung heroes. So last but certainly not least, I would like to voice my gratitude to everyone else that's in attendance here today, and particularly to the Arabian Gulf's Jewish communities. Ladies and gentlemen, today I will speak briefly to you about the role of higher education and what it can play in promoting peace in the Middle East. Though I will shine a light on the role of higher education with the context of the Abraham Accords process, I would actually like to speak about this subject in more broad terms. While there are a range of approaches in the higher educational field of peace building, including peace conflict studies, democracy and human rights studies, security, peace and development studies, the main distinction in the field of education research is between peace and education, which refers to the study of basic peace knowledge, values and skills, and peace building through education. So this, which refers to the systemic approach to peace-orientated educational policy-making, governance, teaching, learning, and civic engagement in favor of an inclusive, equitable, and just society. So as a student of conflict and peace building, a former diplomat, and now a regulator of the higher education scene in my own country, in my own view, that there are three chief ways in which higher education institutions, or as we in the industry like to call them, the HEIs, can act as peace builders in their society. So the first is the economic empowerment. The teaching function of the HEIs is the most direct way in which higher education can support economic recovery, which is viewed as a major pillar of effective peace building. Conflict can have a major negative impact on human capital, and universities play an instrumental role in producing graduates with the advanced knowledge and skills to repool this human capital back into the economy. The second is the capacity building. So HEIs can directly support peace building through teaching specialized fields related to peace and conflict. In this way, colleges and universities related to peace and conflict can supply the staff for non-governmental organizations, international agencies, and other organizations engaged in peace building. Third is facilitating communication. So teaching at higher education level can support the peace building efforts at higher education institutions through cultivating stronger people-to-people connections and interactions. So learning approaches, including student-centered classes, international events, and competitions have the potential to foster communicative skills and competencies that can support interstate peace building in ways that conventional diplomatic channels and means never can simply. So it will only take us from the grassroots level. So having said that all, I'm sure that we can all agree that the universities are critical actors in the promotion of peace and that higher education is uniquely positioned to facilitate and foster peaceful dialogue among the nations of the world. So for the purpose of today's discussion, I would like to focus on the third function of the higher education in promoting peace. So after all, it is the most visible, obvious utility in this regard. Through international collaborative and competitive extracurricular activities, educators can better help nurture among their students a spirit of compassion, equity, reconciliation, social responsibility, and mutual respect for their fellow man, woman, regardless of wherever they may hail from. So qualities that are essential in the work of peace building. It does not end here, however. So as a communicative value, higher education confers upon peace building and peaceful coexistence itself. So multifaceted for starters, integrating peace building values and aims into education policies and curricular cross disciplines is a major boon both for higher ed and governance, but also for the promotion of peace. So in doing so, peace is promoted through the alignment of governance of educational institutions with the values and the vision of a peaceful, inclusive, and just society. Ultimately, though, it is through creating partnerships in higher educational institutions and their surrounding communities, which most explicitly expresses the value of higher ed that has to offer in peace building efforts. This is because it's most concretely involves further achieving peace building gains by undertaking diverse forms of transformative practice orientated towards the common good. Nevertheless, nothing can be achieved without educational leaders and professionals who are willing to adopt a conflict-sensitive analytical lens and prioritize a social impact-oriented peace-building approach. So when deciding upon institutional and discipline-specific aims and strategies, it thus falls upon us as regulators and as academics alike to really drive home the transformative capacities of the higher ed vis-a-vis peace by organizing more and more iterations of interstate and international inclusive dialogues and collaboration. So in other words, initiating partnerships with the state and local leaders, community and international organizations, students and the general public participating in multi-sectorial dialogue platforms and enabling the wider society to benefit from universities' presence and resources, especially on themes of peace building. This now brings us to the Abraham Accords and the question of peace in the Middle East. Simply put, the peace process cannot truly trickle down to the general populace of the signing of countries without involving education and educators. So by bringing students and scholars together, cross-cultural education initiatives could do more than serve the higher purpose of transmitting knowledge, encouraging the search of truth, and cultivating independent minds. They also have the far-reaching ancillary effects, fostering the exchange of outlooks and experiences, enriching appreciation of the complex interplay of tradition and common humanity in the form of people and nations, and building networks of a lifelong friends and colleagues. It is not enough to merely have student exchanges, though it is a necessary first step. Much more can be done. Universities should establish visiting professorships to bring Israeli scholars to teach in the Gulf, and Bahraini and Emirati and Moroccan scholars to teach in Israel, as they should provide financial incentives to encourage faculty members to devise proposals for academic conferences that focus on issues of special interest to all three Middle East countries, as well as the wider scope of the stakeholders, such as the United States of America, the European Union, from a desalination and the environment to a comparative religion and interfaith dialogue. So these types of exchanges will help expose the future generations of the member countries to their different cultures on a much deeper and more intimate level that tourism, business dealings, or political consultations can ever hope to achieve. It is through their classroom discussions with one another, their talks during the lunch breaks, and their collaboration with competition with one another at university contests that they will be able to better know one another. And it is in that knowledge of each other that they will be able to better perceive the benefits of peace. For without it, they would never have met and learned from their new friends. This is the very sentiment, in fact, that rings true in the teachings of my own religions. So in the Holy Quran, Allah Almighty says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. In English, it's, O mankind, indeed, we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. And what better way is there for people to get to know one another than through education and shared learning experiences? So I have taken up much of your time already. However, I wish to end with a personal anecdote. A close protege and employee of mine is actually on his way to New York right now, even as we speak, to participate in the American Jewish Committee's annual Global Forum to talk about his trip with a multinational delegation that was led and sponsored to the AGJC to Israel sometime last March. So Sheikh Abdullah told me that throughout his time in Israel, he kept thinking to himself, what a missed opportunity it was for him and his generation to have lost out on being able to actually study, if only for a semester, in a place like Tel Aviv University. So when I asked him why that was the case, he said it was not just so for the quality of the education, it would have enabled him so that as that could, it was not so much for the quality of education as that can be found in many other places in the world, but because it would have enabled him to learn more about Israel, its society, its people, and culture during his formative years. So this is the sort of experience, the sort of buy-in that higher ed has to offer when it comes to promoting peace in the Middle East, gaining a deeper appreciation for one another outside the realm of mutual strategic interests and political convenience. So thank you all for your kind attention and for hosting me today. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for speaking with us. And I think one thing that Bahrain and Israel really do share is its big focus on higher education. And so the opportunity that one day we could see students on each other's campuses and faculty exchanges is really, really exciting. So thank you for being with us today. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Rabbi Abadi for his weekly Dvar Torah.
Thank you, Ariella, and thank you very much, Your Excellency, Sheikh Harana, for the beautiful presentation about the importance of education and missed opportunities. Education in the Jewish tradition is of paramount importance, and indeed it is a commandment and an obligation of a parent to educate, to teach their children. And unfortunately, at least in the last 73 years, that opportunity of educating the entire region of our being cousins, our tradition, our similar values, our closeness in our thoughts, philosophy, and religious teaching. It was a missed opportunity, but in a span of the world history, according to what we count, 5,782, 73 years are very short. So we have all our future ahead of us to do that education, to be part of it, and to join. And that certainly will bode much, much better for the future of our youngsters and the next generation. So thank you very much for that beautiful presentation. I'm sure now for everyone, I'm sure all of us have found ourselves sometime trying to decide what kind of gifts we want to bring to an occasion. And we don't know what to do. I mean, I'm not talking even about when we travel away and we have to bring gifts to our loved ones where we left them and they're all expecting us to bring something. If it's the spouse, the children, the brothers, sisters, whoever. And sometimes we find it very, very difficult to bring a gift. Some other times we feel that a gift, in a sense, absolves us from giving of ourselves. From doing something physically or being there present. And so we send a gift, hoping that that gift, in a sense, either will appease the people that we gave a gift or will represent us, so to speak. And so I'm sure all of us have been in such situation throughout our lives. And then sometimes there are certain occasions that almost everybody bring, if not the same gift, but similar gifts. You know, what do you give a bar mitzvah boy or bat mitzvah girl gifts? You know, we try to give something religiously meaningful, traditionally significant, right? Or when somebody is inaugurating a new home, right? The mezuzah comes to mind, and the person ends up with 10, 20, 100 different style of mezuzot because everybody comes to a home and that's what they give. And so, what do people do? What do people who bring the gifts says, I'm going to bring something the same that others, and whoever receiving the gift says, wow, I have so many of those, I need to exchange them. And so I'm sure, as I said, all of us have been found in a situation like this, and we may have resolved it or we may not have resolved it, and we did the best that we can. The parasha this week, a very, very interesting one in a sense. It is called Naso. Naso from the Hebrew word lehasi, to lift up, to raise, to elevate. And in it, we read about the inauguration of the tabernacle that the Israelites built in the desert on the way out of Egypt to the Holy Land. In that 40 years. In the second year, they built that tabernacle and they inaugurated it. Of course, the tabernacle needed gold, silver, brass, material, tunics, all kind of colors, vessels. The famous vessels that were built, you know, the candelabra from gold, the altar, the holy ark, the vessels where the priests had to wash, all of those things. Plus, in addition, the tabernacle, they did offerings, and those offerings included cows, bulls, sheep, whatever was dictated at that time. So the inauguration of the tabernacle, we are told that the presidents of each tribe, there were 12 tribes, the leader, the president, the sheikh, if you will, of each tribe, had to bring a gift to the inauguration of the tabernacle. And so, of course, they wanted to bring gifts that were useful, gifts that they will be used in the tabernacle and its functioning. They were not going to bring something that was going to be put aside and not used. And so, lo and behold, we read in the portion this week that 12 tribes brought exactly the same gifts, exactly. Every single measurement exactly. I'm just going to read one of them just so you could see what kind of gifts they were. So the first tribe, the tribe of Judah, right, brings 1 silver bowl, right, 1 silver basin, both filled with fine flour mixed with oil for a meal offering, 1 gold ladle, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 sheep in its first year, 1 he-goat, 1 peace offering, 2 cattle, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 sheep in the first year. And this is the offering of that leader. Like him, 12 other sheikhs of the tribes brought exactly the same, not even one little thing different, exactly the same. And of course, each one is read. It's written. It didn't say, okay, all the priests, all the Nasiim, all the leaders, all the sheikhs brought this gift. No. And the sheikh so-and-so of Chuba brought this. And then the sheikh so-and-so of this tribe brought this. Exactly the same, repeated 12 times. And of course, our sages ask, I think everybody could ask, why do we need to read it 12 times? First, excuse me. Secondly, why did they bring the same gifts? Can't they be a little bit more, excuse me, creative? Somebody would have told them, don't bring the same as the other guy. Maybe you want to bring something else. Excuse me. But that's what they brought. In fact, some commentators say that they did not even know what the other head of the tribe is bringing. It so happened that they all brought exactly the same, that they didn't know. So that miraculously all brought the same. So of course we have to explain this phenomenon. So one possibility is that they may have been given a list of what it was needed for the inauguration of the tabernacle and all the furniture and the function of the tabernacle, and they divided it amongst all of them, 12. Each one, now the question why each one brought the same thing, they could have divided it in a different way. Now we go to the second interpretation, and that is that each one brought exactly the same, so no one can say my gift is better than yours. I have a greater share in the tabernacles. I brought gold, you brought silver. And that's why they all brought the same thing. They may have divided what was needed exactly the same, so each one can bring exactly the same, and no one can feel superior over the other or feel inferior from the other person. Each one brought exactly the same. I want to go further than that. Not only that they brought exactly the same, however, we have to assume that each one's own intention or the way that they brought it, the gusto, the enthusiasm, the feeling, that might have been different. That may have been more of the individual. Yes, they brought all the material things were the same, but the way it was brought, the enthusiasm, the desire, the feeling behind it, that I could venture to say that each one brought his own to the table, his own feeling, his own meaning, his own desire, his own enthusiasm to giving that gift. And lastly, I want to say that sometimes, and at least I would say most of the time, I would hope so at least, that a material gift, yeah, it might be meaningful, might be nice, might be something that a person needed as they get that gift, but that kind of absolves the person from his or her participation, physically, bodily, intellectually. And sometimes a physical gift, in a sense, if a person gives of himself, of herself, they participate and be counted on, it's certainly much more meaningful than a physical and material gift. I tell many of my congregants here and in all the previous congregation that I had. So many of them can come, they come and tell me, Rabbi, I'm sorry, I cannot contribute financially to your congregation, to your community, to your synagogue, whatever it is. So I always tell them, no, of course, if you can, that would be appreciated. But the most important contribution that I would like from you is that you are present during prayer times, during social activities, during lectures, during conferences. That's the best contribution that you can make, being part of the community, being part of the congregation. The money is good, But that's even better, because that shows money you could basically exempt yourself and give it and say, I'm done. But by coming, by participating, by counting yourself in with the community, that shows a much, much greater commitment. That shows it's a personal commitment. That's what you bring to the table, so to speak. And that's what I tell all my congregants. Come, be counted, be part of the community. That's the best gift that you can give. And I also would venture to say that all the leaders of those tribes, the sheikhs of those 12 tribes, it's not that the material thing that it was exactly the same, but how they brought it, that they were there, that they were present. That is really what counts. Let us hope and pray that next time we either get a gift or bring a gift, we understand the meaning behind all of that. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Abadi, for those inspiring words. And with that, we'll turn it over again to Rabbi Miller for a Torah reading.
Thanks again for having me. Hello again from Jerusalem. تحياتي لجميع الحاضرين الضيوف الكرام أينما كنتم. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Maybe just one sentence about this reading before we read and translate. The Nazir, the Nazirite, is also included in this week's parasha. And the Nazir is someone who takes upon himself a vow of abstinence from specific prohibitions, such as grape products, not just wine, but anything that comes from grapes, from ritual impurity, coming from a dead body. And he has to grow his hair long. And the Torah specifies these laws, which we'll read in a second. And the Talmud and our sages actually say that excessive asceticism and chastity are also not required when you're a religious person. When you take upon yourselves too many obligations, that's also not required, and that's not a good thing. People should stick to the obligations and I guess laws that are already existing, and they're good enough and they're numerous enough. So now I'll read from chapter 6 in the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, from verse 1. So chapter 6, verse 1. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם איש או אישה, כי יפלי לנדור נדר נזיר, להזיר לאדוני, מיין ושחר יזיר, חומץ יין וחומץ שחר לא ישתה, וכל משרת ענבים לא ישתה, וענבים לחים ויבשים לא יאכל, כל ימי נזרו מכל, אשר יעשה מגפן היין, מחרצנים ועד זג לא יאכל, כל ימי נדר נזרו, תער לא יעבור על ראשו, עד מלות הימים אשר יזיר לאדוני, קודש יהיה, גדל פרע שיער ראשו, כל ימי הזירו לאדוני, על נפש מת לא יבוא, לאביו ולאמו, לאחיו ולאחותו, לא יטמא להם במותם, כי נזר אלוהיו על ראשו, כל ימי נזרו, קדוש הוא לאדוני, וכי ימות מת עליו בפתע פתאום, וטימא ראש נזרו, וגילח ראשו ביום טהרתו, ביום השביעי יגלחנו, וביום השמיני יביא שתי תורים או שני בני יונה אל הכהן אל פתח אוהל מועד, ועשה הכהן אחד לחטאת ואחד לעולה, וכיפר עליו מאשר חטא על הנפש, וקידש את ראשו ביום ההוא, והזיר לאדוני את ימי נזרו, והביא כבש בן שנתו לאשם, והימים הראשונים יפלו, כי טמא נזרו.
Thank you very much. And now over to Michael, who will do the English translation for us. Michael, are you with us?
I had him on mute. Okay. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, if any men, women explicitly utter a Nazirite's vow to set themselves apart from the Lord, they shall abstain from wine and any other intoxicant. They shall not drink vinegar of wine or any other intoxicant, neither shall they drink anything in which grapes have been steeped, nor eat grapes fresh or dried. Throughout their term as a Nazirite, they may not eat anything that is obtained from the grapevine, even seeds or skin. Throughout the term of their vow as Nazirite, no razor shall touch their head. It shall remain consecrated until the completion of their term as Nazirite of the Lord, the hair of their head being left to grow untrimmed. Throughout the term that they have set apart from the Lord, they shall not go in where there is a dead person. Even if their father or mother or their brother or sister should die, they must not become defiled for any of them, since hair set apart for their God is upon their head. Throughout their term as Nazirite, they are consecrated to the Lord. If someone dies suddenly nearby, defiling the consecrated hair, the Nazirite shall shave the head at the time of becoming pure, shaving it on the 7th day. On the 8th day, that person shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as burnt offering, and make expiation on the person's behalf for the guilt incurred through the corpse. That same day, the head shall be reconsecrated, and that person shall rededicate to the Lord the term as Nazirite, bringing a lamb in its first year as a penalty offering. The previous period shall be void, since the consecrated hair was defiled. This is the ritual of the Nazirite. On the day that the term as Nazirite is completed, the person shall be brought to the entrance of the tent of the meeting. Amen.
Thank you very much. And over to Rick for the prayer for peace.
This is the prayer for peace adapted from Rabbi Nachman ben Fega. Lord of peace, divine ruler to whom peace belongs, master of peace, creator of all things, may it be your will to put an end to war and bloodshed on earth, and to spread a great and wonderful peace over the whole world. Help us and save us all, and let us cling tightly to the virtue of peace. Let there be a truly great peace between every person and their fellow, and let there be no discord between people, even in their hearts. Let us never shame any person on earth, great or small. May it be granted unto us to fulfill thy commandment, to love thy neighbor as thyself, with all our hearts and souls and bodies and possession. God, who is peace, bless us with peace. Amen.
Amen. And now over to me for the prayer for the GCC. May he who gives salvation to kings and dominion to princes, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who delivers his servant David from the evil sword, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters, bless and protect, guard and help, exalt, magnify, and uplift His Majesty, the King of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, the King of Bahrain, His Majesty, the Sultan of Oman, His Highness, the President of the UAE, His Highness, the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness, the Emir of Qatar, and all of their crown princes. And may the Supreme King of Kings, in his mercy, put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into their hearts and the hearts of all their counselors and officials to deal kindly with us, the house of Jacob, and all the people of this land. Be their shelter and stronghold, and let them not falter. In their days and in ours, may these lands be blessed with stability, prosperity, and peace. May this be his will, and let us say amen. And with that, to close out today's program, we'll turn it over to Raphael for Shalom Aleichem.
Thank you, Raphael. This is Raphael from Kuwait. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Sharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Sharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Sharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Bochen Shalom, Malachei Shalom. Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Bochen Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Bochen Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chuni Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malach Melachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chuni Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachim Melachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chuni Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachim Melachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedek Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachim Melachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedek Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachim Melachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedek Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachim Melachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Thank you very much. And wherever you're spending Shabbat this week, we wish you a peaceful and a restful Shabbat. And we look forward to seeing you all next week on our Zoom.
Shabbat shalom,
everyone.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.